Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. I wasn't quite sure what to call today's topic, as it's something awful that can happen in a lot of different contexts. But we need to talk about it, and it needs a name. So here comes Pushback Overkill. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, the lady who will push back and overkill anyone who's mean to me, Susan Bridges.
Hello. It's true.
See, I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Thank you. Our returning guest is Shomari Kirkwood, a television writer who's written for the 4400 and Clean Slate. Over the years, she's worn many hats, having been a member of the fantasy short fiction magazine Podcastle and an apprentice on the award-winning podcast Mother Country Radicals. Born in Kenosha, Wisconsin, she grew up cultivating multiple passions for the arts and writing, as well as the occult, martial arts, and glassblowing. She currently resides in Los Angeles, California, with her loving partner and attention-hungry cat. Welcome back, Shomari.
Hello, and my pushback and overkill is needing to make sure my cat doesn't bite my keyboard.
Oh, they're lovable little miscreants sometimes, aren't they?
Oh yeah, no, he took off a enter key one time. I had to put that keycap back on.
How dare you pay attention to your computer?
He's so well, that day I think I was doing a date thing, and then he was like, "How dare you not pay attention to me?"
Yeah.
And then destroys the keyboard. He's very tech savvy. He turned my computer off one time.
Wow.
Well done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was. I have to give it to him.
Okay, well, I am pretty sure that you are the first guest we've ever had who was into glass blowing, and I've always thought that looked really cool. So how did you get into that, and what the hell is it like?
Okay, so I love talking about glass blowing, honestly.
Yay!
I got really lucky in that after a not so great 6th grade year at a local public school, I was switched to a private school that I had tested into and did really well at. And that school, it's called like the Prairie School. It was like the building was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. It's like a whole thing.
Wow.
They have a glass blowing studio for
That's
some
wild.
reason.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
And so I want to say it was my 8th grade year and my freshman year of high school, I did glass blowing there. And I was able to save so much money on Christmas gifts because I just like, let me make you a vase. And people are touched. My dad supposedly still uses the candy dish I made him.
Aw.
But the thing about what it's like is, first, very hot. Like, it's so hot in that room where, like, imagine some of the, like, no AC, middle of summer, small LA apartment kind of hot.
Yeah.
And it's that. And it's so hot that you keep a pitcher in the studio to like keep drinking water so you're like good.
Yeah.
But also it's a workout. It's such a workout.
Really?
Yes. Like, because the thing is, okay. So what you have this really long steel rod. Like, imagine something almost the size of a bow staff, and it's so heavy because it is this thick, hardy steel, because you're gonna carry it over to the glory hole, put it into like scoop, roll
the glory
in.
hole?
Yes, it's called the glory hole.
Wow.
That is the technical term.
You're pushing our PG-13 rating, but okay. It's glass blowing. It's about glass blowing.
It is. If you watch the glass blowing competition show on Netflix, that's what it's called.
Okay.
We have to watch this on Netflix.
I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah.
You have it? It has like 3 or 4 seasons.
Wow.
Oh yes. It's very fun.
I'm excited.
You kind of push the rod into there and then roll it around to scoop up molten glass.
Yeah.
And so you're carrying that out. So you have a big glob of molten glass on the end of this rod, and you have to make sure you keep it level, like parallel to the ground, and constantly rotate it. So
So it
that way
doesn't drip.
gravity,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
And then you roll it into more glass to give it the colors, and then you start working it where you get to lay it down on this bench to like kind of roll it around so you can sort of shape glass on the end. But it's this whole thing where as you work it, especially if you're doing a big creation, it just gets heavier and heavier because it's
Yeah.
more glass, and this rod has to be as thick and heavy as it needs to be so it doesn't just like melt carrying it.
Right.
And so you're doing that, you're chugging water, and you're in this fight against gravity and making, and every motion can't be wasted.
Right.
But then when it's done, you're just kind of like then doing the normal thing that anyone who's familiar with like pottery is familiar with, where like you take the thing, you get it off the rod, you put it into a kiln, and well, like a kiln, it's called an annealer, if I remember my terminology correct for glass blowing. You put into that annealer, and then it's just like, okay, it's now going to essentially cool it down very, very, very slowly so it doesn't explode.
Yeah.
And it can still explode if you messed something up somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's so much fun. It's like running the shortest marathon, but when it opens up and it's done, there's kind of no feeling like it. It's really cool.
That's amazing. Like, how long does it take, like, to make a piece? Like, if it's not like an overly complicated piece.
I would say a not overly complicated piece can take maybe hour and a half. Like the simplest piece
Okay.
you can make is a paperweight. We're doing that is making a paperweight is really just a matter of, get the glass, you roll it around, roll it in the glass you want to be the color, roll it some more, make it round, tap the rod, fall it off, put in the annealer, then you wait. So like in terms of actually the hot glass part, maybe an hour, maybe a little bit less. And then all the other time is just annealer time, which is a bunch of other hours. And then afterwards you're like, I would say you're sanding the bottom, but you're not really sanding it. You use this like, imagine a pottery wheel, but it's like wet clay going really, really fast. And that's what's used to kind of grind down the glass. And then from there, you're done. It's like for a paperweight, you can knock one out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If you're just looking at labor time.
But even still, like an hour of that heavy lifting, I mean, that's a workout. So did it make you all buff?
Thing. I think it wasn't like buffing the arms. It was a lot in the core because you're just maintaining that balance and this one posture. So I think I came out of it with like pretty good core strength.
That's amazing. This is all amazing. I knew nothing about this. That's fascinating.
You gotta watch that show on Netflix.
I hate traditional core work. Is there anything else I can do that isn't whatever this is?
Blow glass.
Glass blowing.
I honestly think it is. Same with like doing Tai Chi, because it's like, it's a lot of slow controlled motion. And this is the martial artist in me talking, but like there's a specific kind of glorious exercise agony from needing to move slowly and being hyper aware of every muscle movement. And so like it's a very different workout than like, running, pumping iron, where it's like much faster usually. Very similar to deadlifting, where it's like slow, full process kind of engagement.
Fascinating. I love deadlifting.
You do.
Tai Chi, maybe that's it.
I
do like slow yoga too. Slow yoga poses. That is fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on now.
Very well.
This was great, though. Okay, but what has been the most surprising thing about your transition?
I think my most surprising thing about my transition, and I want to lead and have it sound like a downer, but I think it's not being like fixed, I say with an air quote. Like, I think when I was pre-transition, so much of my my depression, my anxiety, my everything was wrapped up in my feelings around
Sure.
my body and being perceived as a supposedly cishet man that I very much was not.
Yeah, yeah.
And once I started transitioning, and I've been in it for years now, a thing that really struck me earlier on was like, okay, I'm doing it. Why am I not happy? Like, I was happier,
Yeah.
but there's something about transitioning where I kind of have been talking about it a lot with friends who are like other trans writers, where so many stories cis people really like about us are like so much like the like little, how to put it, like almost like a transition ploitation kind of genre where it's
Sure.
like it's just
Yeah.
about getting there,
Yeah.
and then it's like afterwards it's done, and it's like, no, afterwards you need to figure out who you are. Like, in my case, I knew I was a woman, but now in transitioning, it's what kind of woman do you want to be?
Yep.
What does it mean to you? How do you want to treat people? How do you want to respond to certain things you might now face? What's your relationship to being a woman, specifically that as a Black person? Like,
Sure.
and like, there's just all of these things that alongside the mental health of, actually, I still am sometimes depressed. I still sometimes have anxiety. I
Yeah.
know, according to friends of mine, they're like, people I talk to say you pass so well all the time. And I'm like, do I? That feels fake. And all of that's just anxiety and nerves. And it's this thing where it's hard to tell people because it's like you want them to know that transitioning can be really good. But the
Yeah.
surprising thing really is the work that happens afterwards is the kind of work that I think cis people get into much faster, but we all have to do it. We all have to figure out like what kind of person do we want to be
Right.
as we grow up, as we change. And so that was really the surprising part for me.
Yeah. I think I've seen somebody put it kind of as that transitioning will not fix all of your problems, but it will give you the ability to address the rest of them. You know, it will address a
Yes.
big one for you. And then because that one is addressed, or at least partially getting addressed, making you feel a little bit better, you're able to address these other things that you couldn't even get to before because, pre-transition you felt so awful. So yeah.
Entirely. And I think one of the things that is great about it is like you have the energy to address some of them. Some of it's the
Yes.
energy,
That
some of
too.
it's the perspective. And I think, and when we think of transition, we talk about the medical part a lot. The social part
Yeah.
is, and also I guess the personal development part is this one that maybe is worth talking about a lot more, and also worth trying to get yourself to find a fun in. Like, there is something fun to thinking about, okay, I'm a woman. What's my vibe? What am I
Yeah,
wearing?
yeah.
Where am I, a makeup girl, or am I more like a jewelry girl? Like, there's all of these things, and you get to take part in this joy of creation and building yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of learning to love that part, because it's the part that comes post getting HRT, if that's a part of someone's specific transition journey.
Right. Yeah. That's really important, I think. Really beautifully said.
Thank you.
All right. So, if you had any advice for people who were just starting their transition, what would it be?
I think I think my advice would be, look at go back to some of the women that, like, this is a trans woman specific one, but really, not really specific. You could say this for anyone. Think about when you started realizing you were trans, and the people, whether in your life or whether they were characters, whatever, that gave you gender euphoria. And like,
Yeah.
really just like look at that, because I feel like that was that part of you that you didn't know was trans yet, telling you, here's kind of who you maybe want to be, here's who you're drawn to. Because
Yeah.
everyone's gender euphoria is different. Like, even amongst trans women will be like, I really like that, want to be this kind of woman, this is who I
Right.
was always looking at. And another trans woman's like, oh no, not me. Like, I have a trans woman friend who is like, never put me in a dress, never put me in
Yeah.
skirts, But for her, she was like, always was into the image of like the pantsuit, powerful businesswoman. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
hey, power to you, buddy. But it's like, look back at those things because that is the easiest. That's the most map you're ever going to get. I feel like there's not really a map to transitioning, but looking at what made you feel good, what made you start to want to do this is
Yeah.
a close one.
Yeah. I think that's great advice because, I wish I had realized. There's a thing we've talked about on this show many times about how pre-transition, I was always telling Susan here how good she looked in bows and wanting her to get bows and trying to get bows for her. She does not care for bows. And it was me, of course, that wanted to be wearing the bows, but I didn't realize that at the time. But I wear them all the time now. So that's like, I love them. So that's a really good indicator. It was clearly
Yeah.
I was getting something from them that I couldn't recognize at the time. So, yeah.
And when you transitioned, I took a big pile
You
of
did.
the bows and I put them on the bed and I'm like, they're yours now.
Yes, they were mine. They were probably
I
always mine. You were just holding them for me.
That's right.
Oh yeah. No, I remember how growing up, I really, when watching anime, there's the kind of girl where it's like the very colorful, pastel-y, but also
Yeah.
kind of like buckles and ruffly kind of Lolita stuff that I was like always into.
Yeah.
And then now, as I'm like building my wardrobe out, I'm like, yeah, this ruffly, lacy thing is like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what I wanted. That's always what I was wanting.
Yep. The signs were always there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we get into this week's topic, you want to remind folks one more time where they can find you online after listening.
Yes, they can find me on Blue Sky at mxoberon.bsky.social, where I talk about everything and anything from news about the world to movies and books I'm enjoying.
And writing.
And
You talk about
writing.
writing a lot because you are a writer. Like,
That's true.
yeah. All right, Tilly, the hell is Pushback Overkill? I hear you furiously screaming in your head because I might be mildly telepathic. Hey, I could be, you don't know. And so I shall endeavor to explain. There is this phenomena that happens a lot in the queer and trans community where people who are so used to fighting for basic things that they need and deserve continue fighting even when it's not warranted or required, to sometimes terrible outcomes. And if that seems vague, it's because it kind of is. This is a tough concept to explain, but I've seen it crop up again and again and again, and there's one specific way it's hurt a lot of trans people, which meant it was something I wanted to talk about, but it's really difficult to talk about a concept that is so hard to explain. I can spot it and I can recognize it, but I can't really describe it better than I have above. So the best way is to give you some examples, and then I think you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. Let's start with a non-trans example, although it does brush right up against it in ways I'll talk about: polyamory, which is having or desiring more than one romantic partner at a time. These other partners may also have a sexual relationship, but they also might not. It's mostly about romantically loving and being in a relationship with more than one person at a time. The Wikipedia article of all things on it is actually pretty good. There is a link in the show notes. Right up front, I am not poly. I have no desire to be poly. That does not mean I'm not attracted to people who are not my wife, because I sure am. Ladies are just so good and I'm very gay for them. But I do not, and critically do not want to, pursue having a relationship with them. I've thought about it, explored it to see if I might be poly. I am surely not. I am hopelessly monogamous and madly in love with my wife, Susan.
Aw, so nice.
She is the one for me. And by the one for me, I mean the one for me, because there is but one. But I have a lot of friends who are poly, especially in the trans and non-binary community. Does that seem odd to you? It doesn't to me. Because trans and non-binary people have to operate outside the transphobic system we live in, right? We see through the lies of societal gaslighting, as talked about in episode 95, and find our truths. And I've said this probably hundreds of times in these episodes, but I need to say it again here. Once you see that the false cis-binary matrix of society is a lie, it opens you up to all the other lies society tells you. Trans people can see those and prove them to be lies better than anyone, and it's part of what makes us such a threat to Republicans. So before I get any further into this, Shomari, I wanted to ask you if discovering that you were trans helped you spot all of the other lies, especially the gender lies that society will throw at us all.
Oh, yes. No,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. Like oh my gosh. I think some of the lies that became just so immediately spottable were one, everything that was just like, oh, one, you have the myths about like trans people being almost like predatory, and it's
Yep.
like, have you met a trans woman? Like, they will apologize for helping you up after you fall on the ground. Like, they'll be like, I'm sorry
Yeah.
that you had to like look at me. It's like, okay, where is this coming from? That's a lie. But then also there's lies around what men and women can do or
Yeah.
should do
Yep.
that becomes so apparent because you start to realize everything is this shifting goalpost.
Right.
You know, like the one that I think about a lot, because of our ancestors are so many of them were very techy, you know, like
Yeah.
early synths were developed by a trans woman,
Yep.
and for a lot of computing and technology you had a lot of women that were involved, but then society shifts, things gain different values, and then now it's like, well, no, technology and computers, that's not really a womanly subject, and
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
it's boy stuff. Yeah.
right, and you're like, well, it was a womanly subject enough until you saw there was money in it.
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of those things where I think when we talk about like socially transitioning, that's where I started seeing a lot of those
Yeah.
lies, because it's like, okay, if I'm trying to hit what society is saying a woman is, I'm just going to keep tripping into rakes because it's just shifting. And half the time it's shifting to make sure that if I think I would like something, if it would actually be honest to me, then society is like, well, no, actually, you shouldn't like that. That's just fake.
Yeah.
Like there's the whole thing of, I think like TERFs say this a lot, of like the trans women who like dresses, who
Yeah.
like skirts, who like overtly feminine stuff, where it's like,
Like
oh, you're
me.
being, yes, where it's so honest and it's so
Yeah.
like pure hearted and earnest of like, this is me. The pushback of, well, actually, you're just falling for society and you're being misogynistic because of it. And it's like, well, would you say that to like a random other cis woman who
Right.
likes a dress? They might, but like it does become this thing where a lot of those lies shift and move around, especially when trans people start to like something,
Yeah.
and you eventually realize, I'm not doing it. It's just not worth it because it's a game you're not meant to win.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Mm.
Yeah. When you are already outside the system of lies and can see all the other lies society forces us into, like gendered childhoods, as talked about in episode 50, and the false dichotomy, as discussed in episode 11, things like compulsory cisgenderness and compulsory heterosexuality, you notice there are other things we are compelled to be, even if they are not true to our personal nature. And one of those is, without a doubt, compulsory monogamy. Our white supremacist patriarchal society has a vested interest in providing a good woman to every man to do all the unpaid and unacknowledged labor of keeping a house running and often raising children, which is all wrapped up in it. So we're fed lies by society and the news and our media that monogamy is the only way humans experience romantic relationships. But that is demonstrably not true. I know a lot of polyamorous folks, and all of it is consensual with all of their partners. It's not about cheating or wild sexual encounters, though I suspect some of those happen anyway, but it is about being a person who falls in love with and then continues loving and being in a relationship with multiple people at a time in an ethical, loving way. And so I get really angry when people try and force monogamy on them because it's not who they are. It's not a choice they made. It's how they experience love. And if that's different from me or you, that is fine and good and lovely and wonderful. But, here comes the turn. I have seen some poly folks in the trans community, here's where it brushes up against transness, say things akin to, everyone is polyamorous, being monogamous is just your choice and don't force it on me. And please tell me that you see the problem. Because if being polyamorous isn't a choice and being aromantic isn't a choice, why on earth would being monogamous be a choice? And this isn't even about if I'd choose being monogamous if I could, because I could literally no more choose that than I could choose to be trans or cis. It is just who I am. Sure, lots of other mammals may have multiple sexual or romantic partners. If you can call love between two animals that, and I don't know, maybe you can. But many of them also pick a single other member of their species and mate for life. There are examples of all of this in nature. And if polyamory isn't a choice and being aromantic isn't a choice, if they're just who you are, how can you claim monogamy is a choice? Are there poly people who choose to have mono relationships for whatever reason? Sure. But just because they're in a mono relationship doesn't change that they're actually a poly person, right? Just like a bi person in a straight marriage doesn't make them any less bi. Do poly people experience discrimination from people who want to force mono relationships on society? Yes, but that doesn't make mono people non-existent. Trans people experience discrimination from people who want to force cisness on society, but that doesn't mean cis people don't exist. Estimates from studies in that Wikipedia link put the poly population at probably around 4 to 5%, not that much higher than the trans population in terms of percentages. And they've been discriminated against and can't legally marry multiple partners if that's a thing they wanted to do, and have had to fight to be seen and recognized and treated equally. And they're so used to having to fight for those things that they deserve that sometimes some of them go too far and right into pushback overkill. You are so used to pushing so hard and having to fight for every single inch that the need to constantly push back to take up the rightful space you deserve spills over, and you end up doing to innocent people what was just done to you. I, as a person who is monogamous and is most assuredly not being a choice, who has supported poly people in being treated as equally as mono people are, don't deserve to be told that my state of being that I had no say in is a choice, while their way of being is the one true natural one. Do you see how that is the exact same thing transphobes do to trans people, that homophobes do to gay people? You pushed back too far and went right into overkill. And see what I mean about how it's difficult to explain. But in the example, I think you can see it clearly, and that should hopefully sum it up succinctly enough. So have you encountered instances of this weird phenomena, Shomari? Has any of it impacted you directly?
A little bit. A little bit for impacting me directly,
Yeah.
but a lot that I've seen. The one I grapple with a lot these days is the pushback overkill of lesbians being able to be sexual, to even be let themselves be called lesbians. Like there was this, for the time I was growing up on Tumblr, probably around like early 2010s, there was definitely this pushback against society, as a lot of people were feeling it, viewing lesbians as something only existing in a porn genre. Like,
Sure. They are very, we, I guess, are very fetishized by cis men.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's like, okay, we're pushing back against that we're not a
Right.
fetish, that we're not just a porn genre. And then I slowly saw where the overkill started to happen, where it was like, okay, well, now we're going to start using the term sapphic. And it's like, okay, cool. I understand some of the reasons why. But then the overkill part was people who would then go and say, yeah, because lesbian isn't even a good term. It's not an inclusive term. It's just a porn genre term. And it's like, okay, not really true. If you look back at like some history books, like we
Yeah.
look at published texts and zines and all these sort of things, we can see that there was it's not that the community was always perfect, because every community, both gay and straight, I think, had trouble with trans people at
Yeah.
different points in time. But there are always people who are pushing to be inclusive towards those people. This was not just a socially made term fetish for cis het men. And it's like, okay. And then I just watched as over time this overkill became so much more, where it became this thing of, if you were a lesbian or if you said you were sapphic, but then you expressed desire, people would jump on you like, why are you doing this? Why are you being so fetishizing? Why are you being so bad?
Right. That's a great example. Yeah.
Right. And then you just think, well, half the reason of calling myself a lesbian or sapphic is to express that I really like girls. Girls are great.
They are so great.
Why are we coming around to actually it's better to not actually want to do anything with girls?
Yeah.
You must admire them like one a flower. And it's like, no, I'm a person. They're a person who want to maybe be kissed or held or desired in some way. And that's not suddenly a false thing.
Right.
And so you have that one. I think there's one I started seeing on Blue Sky recently, came from Twitter, where it was the pushback overkill of needing to push back and make space for non-binary identities and genderqueer people,
Yeah.
and then suddenly seeing a kind of turnaround where a sort of pretend progressive trans misogyny emerge, where it's like, oh yeah, this is so important that if you're a trans woman and you have this binary gender, you're suddenly so much less. It would have
Yeah.
been better, it would have been more society breaking if you didn't transition at all and you were just like, let yourself be this feminine man. And it's like,
Yes, I've seen that too. And it's, yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty
it really
bad.
gets to me when that subset of people will say that trans women and trans men are part of the binary. And we are so not, right? We're not
Yeah.
non-binary, but we are not part of the cis binary. We are not part of that system. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's another really great example. Boy, you are on the ball today.
I'm online. I'm too online. That's
Same,
really what it
same.
is.
Yeah,
But I the thing I think about, and I think to use some of your language from earlier, is
yeah,
I think a lot of it comes from this. To quote Talia Blott, who is on Blue Sky, who's this great
yeah.
theorist. I have her book, Trans/Rad/Fem, where it's like
Yeah,
really great trans feminist theory text. She kind of talks about how in our arguments to try to have acceptance for things, we oftentimes go to nature. We're like, this is natural. There's a power in saying there's something natural versus choice, and then choice gets positioned as something artificial.
right.
But she makes this argument of like, but perhaps on the other side of these things, it's recognizing that maybe it doesn't matter if something is natural or a choice. It just matters that this makes someone happy. This
Yeah,
lets them be
absolutely.
fulfilled. And so much of this overkill, I think we're talking about, a lot of it oftentimes seems to come at the crux of people going, your thing is actually artificial and false and bad and harmful. And I'm going to ignore how actually that thing makes you feel good and loved or
Yeah,
secure or
yeah,
fulfilled and self-actualized.
yeah. You are wise.
I just read. I'm quoting someone who published a very nice book, but I have to finish. It's one of those books you just highlight every 2 pages. You're
Oh,
like, oh my
yeah,
gosh. You just
yeah.
lean back.
All right, well, let's get into the topic I wanted to mention about a way that this has damaged part of the trans community and why I wrote this whole thing.
Mhm.
You've seen me say this 100 times, especially in This Is Not For You. Yes, you are trans enough. In episode 13 of the show, you do not have to medically or socially transition to be trans. Transitioning is what we do to make ourselves and our lives better if we can and are able and want to, but they are not what makes us trans. And we have had to fight so hard against transmedicalism, check out episode 60, to get that thought into people's heads. And even still today, it gets perpetuated in movies. See Bad Representation, Emilia Perez in episode 96, and even carried along by trans people who were taught that medical transition, full and all the way with hormone replacement therapy and every surgery, was the only way to transition and is what made you trans. Honestly, I'm not even sure if we're winning the fight against transmedicalism. Some days I think we are, some days I wonder if we ever will. But it is a long, hard fight that good trans people are involved in all the time because there is no one right way to be trans. None of us without all of us. See trans intersectionality in episode 10 for more. So what is the problem? Perhaps, I imagine, you have seen the threat that transgender affirming care is presently under in the United States and other countries. Conservative bigots are doing their damnedest to erase us from history and public life and make our care illegal. This has rightly caused a lot of trans folks to worry about the future and the loss of their care. Because for those of us on hormone replacement therapy, losing access to it would forcibly medically detransition us. And this has caused some within the community who are seemingly trying to help to say, even if that happens, you don't have to detransition, you're still trans. And like, yeah, I'm still trans and it wouldn't force me to socially detransition, but it would 100% medically detransition me. Some trans or non-binary folks are on HRT by choice as a nice thing to have, but are okay without it, and that is great. But as I mentioned in last week's episode on HRT and many others, I actually legitimately need it. We don't need it to be trans. We need it to be us, to survive, to feel like we can exist in this world, to hold on to who we are. Because without it, the physical and, for me especially, mental changes are key components of making us who we are. It's a necessary part of our lives, of our bodies, of our very identities. But some trans folks have taken, you don't have to be on HRT to be trans, right into pushback overkill and turned it into, if you lose your HRT, it's not a big deal. And holy shit, that could not be more wrong for so many of us. And the last thing any trans person needs, especially right now, is other trans people telling us that losing the very thing that makes us who we are isn't a big deal or worth fighting to protect. So, Shomari, have you seen this particular instance popping up in the trans community? Certain folks treating HRT like it's not that big of a deal for some because it's not for them? Like, where do you stand on the thought of losing access to it?
So to start backwards, where I stand on
Yeah.
the thought of losing access to my HRT is why I'm alive in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like not just, walking around breathing here to yap with about these important topics, but also just alive, like being able to go outside and feel like I can be in the world, being alive in that I can have my partner hug me and actually feel that I'm being hugged rather than
Yeah.
feeling numb.
Yes,
Like
yes.
so critical. And it is in many ways life-saving care.
Mm-hmm.
And I have definitely seen online on all of the different social medias of
Yeah.
people who are like, well, you'll still be valid. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I need a little more than validity on this
Right. That's
one.
not the issue here.
And I think, one of the things I feel when I see it is sometimes the usual internet issue of not knowing that there are different conversations and two things can be true at once,
Yeah.
which that's on dialectical behavior therapy, which I learned from my partner. But it's this thing where transmedicalism, bad. We can agree that that is bad.
Yeah.
Trans people need and deserve access to any and all medical care that they need
Right.
is also good though.
Exactly.
And it is that struggle, I think, to have people realize that to advocate for one type of person's needs is not to inherently mean they're in agreement with someone who's maybe pushing against your needs.
Right.
And it's a mess.
It's
It
such a
really
mess.
is.
Yeah. I mean, I've even seen some people be like, if you are a trans person and you are on HRT, you are conforming to, cisgender norms by, well, if you're a trans woman and you take HRT because you want breasts, you are just conforming to everything that society tells you that, women have to be. And it's like, no, it's what's right for me. I'm not saying every single trans person needs to do this. And I'm not saying that the cisgender heterosexual norms are good. I'm just saying that this is what my body it needs, what is right for my life. And it's so frustrating. It's such a mess.
It truly is. It's one of those things where I like when we were talking about pushback overkill, I could have a litany of examples because it really is just trying to have someone understand that like I'm on your side, I'm with you. Can you be with me? Can you see
Yeah.
that this is my need though? And especially when I feel personally, I feel like we've done a good job at fighting a lot of transmedicalism. And now it's like if transmedicalism was the barrier to a lot of transition historically by
Yeah.
having these cis people set these strange sometimes benchmarks you had to meet to even get said medical care in fighting transmedicalism. I feel like we're now the system as it is like, okay, let's try this thing of just revoking it outright. Let's just get rid of it. And
Yeah.
that's the struggle. And it's like the goal here is not to help all, like the goal of people banning this medical care is not to help like folks who don't want HRT. It's specifically to harm everyone who does. And
Right.
it's trying to get people to step outside a little bit of themselves to see that.
Right.
And it's difficult, especially when you're so used to having to push back. You're so used to seeing enemies at all sides. You're so
Right,
used to
right.
the fear that you're going to get hit from behind, and you're going to be like, what? But I thought, and it's tough. It's so tough. It brings me back to this one essay about like paranoid versus I think like restorative readings, where it's
Yeah.
this idea of, are you reading things that people are doing or that the art around you is saying as always looking for the dark side of it? Are you always looking for the secret weapon? Or are you able to look at it and leave room for it to just be honest? You know,
Yeah.
like, can we leave room that some people really love bows? And
Some of us
that's
do.
oh,
That doesn't mean you have to or anyone else does.
exactly. Some
Yeah.
people really do love bows. Some people really do love being on their HRT. Some people really do love these certain things.
Right.
And in so much of our looking at the lies of society and these propaganda and push on us for so many things, we have to like remember that people still do make choices. Like,
yeah.
they still can desire things, and that's just it. It's like people can want something.
Yes. Yes, they can. This has been such a great discussion. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here because this is an important discussion. It's a hard one. Like
Yeah.
you're very correct that it's a hard discussion to have because my little telepathy is like I can hear someone in the audience being like, but I still am facing all these issues, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
you are, and I
Yeah.
will be there for you.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
we'll be there for you without thinking that your issue is the enemy to my issue.
Yes. 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 And that is, I think, what I'm getting at, and something that I've said a whole lot of times. Listen, I got to repeat the important shit. You understand? Please lead with kindness and compassion. Remember, there is no one right way to be trans. Remember, there is no one right way to love other humans. Remember that every marginalized community is worth fighting for and must be fought for. And remember, they must be fought for up until true equality, but not so far beyond that it spills over into hurting innocent people. None of us without all of us. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The written essay version of this week's topic and all past topics is available at tilliestranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Blue Sky and on Mastodon at tillybridges at mastodon.social, and you can find Susan on those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Blue Sky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of tilliestranstuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to keep up with all the writing that Susan and I do, you can sign up for our newsletter at birdguestbroadcast.com. If you enjoy this show, please take a moment to leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. The largest segment of our listeners find the show there, and more reviews equals a higher profile, which means it will reach more of the people who need it. Thank you for your support. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Thank you.